Hello and welcome. In today's history time, let us take a light-hearted episode. Is it necessary that history has to be serious all the time? Wars, leaders, rulers, famines, and things like that. Humor also has a place in history. So today's episode is dedicated to the stuffed calf. What is a stuffed calf? If you were born after the 1990s, I may have to explain it all to you. But for those who were born before that, the first mention of a stuffed calf will bring to memory a practice that was very popular in Chennai. Let us go back and look at that practice, or should I call it a mall practice? Let us see. In the 1960s and 70s, when I was growing up in this city, milk did not come to us in sachets. Milk was delivered at our doorstep by milkmen. Early in the morning, they would come to the houses, tether the cow to the compound wall, and then the lady of the house would step out. The milkman would show her the empty vessel to indicate that he had not adulterated the milk in any way, and then he would proceed to milk the cow. But milking the cow required the presence of a calf, because it was only on seeing the calf that the cow would be able to secrete the milk. And all the milkmen would have a calf along with them. The tragedy was that this was invariably a dead calf. The dead calf, probably killed, would have then been skinned, and the skin would have been stuffed with hay. 4 sticks would have been placed for the legs, and the calf would be placed in front of the cow. The cow would proceed to merrily lick the calf and produce milk. The milkman would milk the cow, and milk would be sold, and everyone was happy. This was a very, very common practice in Madras city. The English had noted it even in the 19th century. In 1904, early in the 20th century, a journal of the Agricultural College, in those days, the Agricultural College operated from Saidapet before it moved to Coimbatore. In that journal, they have made note of this. It was a survey of cow's milk that was being sold in the city, and in that they have made note that 15% of the milkmen they had surveyed were using straw calves. So it was a fairly common practice in this city. But if you thought that Madras was where this was being done, let me assure you that it was just not here. The straw calf was a common sight in several other parts of not just India, but perhaps the world. For instance, Sir George Wyatt, writing about life in Tibet in the 1860s, says that the yak was the major supplier of milk, and as soon as the yak gave birth to a calf, the calf would be killed for its meat, and then its skin would be stuffed, and it was the stuffed calf that would be placed in front of the yak in order for it to produce milk. Well, that was in Tibet. But would you be surprised if I told you that the same practice existed in Scotland as well? Sir Walter Scott, in his novel Ivanhoe, gives it a word, tulkan. Tulkan was the Scottish word for the dead calf stuffed with straw. So you can imagine how refined a practice it must have been in Scotland that they even had a word for it. But certainly in India, Madras was the place where you could go and see stuffed calves. Why, in the 1960s, the Department of Tourism invited foreigners to come and visit India at its own expense and then write articles about it. And one of them, coming to Madras in the 1960s, has in fact the first thing he writes about is the sight of milkmen wandering around with stuffed calves under their arms. So it was that popular a sight. It was but natural that such an ubiquitous feature of this city would begin to make its way into writing and in cinema. The Ananda Vigadan once dedicated an entire issue to jokes on cows, and in that, one buffalo asks the other as to why she has stopped giving milk, and the other one says, well, my dear, the stink from the stuffed calf is so much that I just can't bring myself to produce any milk. So these were the kind of jokes that we had then. In 1959, there was a film called Sahodari. Chandrababu, the ace comedian, acted as Ananda Konar, a milk vendor. He moves from the city to the village, And there he trains all his fellow milkmen to follow the practices of the city. And a man comes and tells him, do you know, all the milkmen here are now wandering around with stuffed calves under their arms? Similarly, Anubhavi Raja Anubhavi was a film in 1967. Nagesh plays the role of a villager who comes to the city for the first time, and that is where he sings the song Madras, Nalla Madras, very famous song. And in that, in one particular scene, he comes across a milkman walking around with a cow carrying a dead calf. He picks up the dead calf and wonders why it is not bleating, and then he throws it on the ground and covers it with a cloth as though he is covering a dead body with a shroud. So it was that common to see these calves being carried about. Well, stuffed calves may have been worldwide practice, but what if I tell you that the Madras stuffed calf was the only animal to make its way to the Indian Parliament as well? In 1966, Ira Serian, MP from Perambalur, participated in a debate on the financial condition of the country, and in that he criticized socialism, and he said socialism was akin to the stuffed calf of Madras. In my city, he said, milkmen kill the calf as soon as it is born. They then stuff its skin with hay, and each time they want to milk the cow, they go and place the calf in front of it. Socialism is exactly like the stuffed calf. Each time there is an election, this government brings it out and places it in front of the people, and the people go and vote. This was his commentary. I don't think any other dead animal could have had this kind of an honor. Well, all this goes to show what kind of popularity the stuffed calf had. And then it all vanished. Where is it today, you may ask? As R.K. Narayan once famously said, most children in Madras imagine that calves are all born dead. It was that popular, and then it vanished. In 1954, the government of Madras began a scheme in Madhavaram known as the Madhavaram Milk Colony, where it planned to move all the cattle in the city into an 800-acre facility. The milkmen of Madras protested because they felt that their livelihood was within the city. But the Madhavaram Milk Colony was not given up, and gradually it began to grow. By the 1960s, a section of Madras began to get its milk in bottles with colored caps. And by 1971, 25% of the city was getting its milk from the Madhavaram Milk Scheme, run by the Department of Dairy Development, Government of Madras. All this still meant that the milkman and his stuffed calf was a common sight. But in 1981, there was a revolution. All the milk cooperatives, and the first of them was begun in 1927 in Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, the first of India's milk cooperative unions. By 1981, there was quite a number all over Tamil Nadu. They were all brought together, and they began to supply milk to the common brand name known as Avin. Thereafter, milk began to come to us in sachets. Many of today's generation may even be imagining that milk comes only in sachets. And that meant the end of the milkman and his cow and the stuffed calf. They all gradually vanished from the city, and perhaps they exist somewhere in the countryside, if at all. But the stuffed calf, hopefully, has gone out of practice. It is one of those severely negative traits of our society that we are quite happy to get rid of. Let us hope that cows are now fondling live calves and giving us milk. I'll be back with you with other episodes in the following weeks about Madras, that is Chennai. If you like this channel, like it, share it, and subscribe to it. And till the next week, bye for now.